Hello and welcome to Take a Wander with Shebs. On this edition of the podcast, I have Paris Norriss, who's a television host and entrepreneur, and he's coming back on the show after our previous episode a couple of years ago. On this show, he's going to be discussing with me about his expedition rowing across the Pacific Ocean, all the way from the mainland America to Hawaii. It's also a very special show as it's my 100th episode of the podcast. I thought about doing a look back at all my 4 years of podcasting. However, I thought it'd be fitting to have Paris have my 100th episode. I thank everyone that's tuned in over the last 4 years. There's going to be more episodes in the near future. But in the meantime, enjoy this episode and I will see you back at the end of the show. Paris, welcome back to the show. It's great to have you on again. How are you and where in the world are you at the moment? It's quite an amazing place that you're at right now.
Thanks very much. It's a pleasure to be back on the show after our previous podcast. I'm currently coming to you from Hawaii, which, as you know, is an incredible place. It's almost like it's perfectly designed for adventurers, and it's just a tropical paradise. So I've found myself here by circumstance and ended up staying for most of the summer and thoroughly enjoying it. But it's really quite on the other side of the world from just about anywhere.
You've been on the show before. We spoke about your show actually, Guy in Dubai, the success of it, and we're going to go into a little bit about the reason why you're actually in Hawaii, and just explain to everyone what it was that you were doing and why as well.
So I effectively took part in the biggest adventure of my lifetime so far, where we rowed 4,800 kilometers across the Pacific Ocean to reach the island of Kauai, which is the most westerly island of Hawaii. Took us 39 days. It was me and 3 very close friends of mine. We had a team that we called the Brothers in Oars team, which I'm sporting one of our T-shirts with our sponsor Legatum, and we came up with this idea 2 years before. None of us had ever rowed across a river before, so it was a bit of a mad idea to take on the biggest ocean in the world, the deepest ocean in the world, the one with the most volcanic activity and hurricanes or typhoons, as they're called in this ocean. But we thought that this is going to be a real mission to learn to train for this, because there's a big physical challenge, to learn everything we can, because there's a huge amount of seamanship, navigation, safety, first aid, these sorts of things that we have to know, how to manage a small boat like this. It's a 7-meter long boat. And it was going to be a real test of our mental strength. More than anything, our ability to hold it together as a team, which I'm proud to say, our biggest accomplishment, I believe, was not rowing the ocean, but was completing it with pretty much no arguments.
You're talking about 39 days straight with that sort of amount of sleep, where you sleep for a couple of hours and you keep rowing. Is it just like that for 39 days?
Absolutely, yeah. So all the way across, we maintained a sleep pattern of resting for 2 hours, rowing for 2 hours. That allowed a good amount of time for someone to be rowing, because we could row for 2 hours. If you try to do 3 hours and allow someone else a bit more rest, we started to find that started to reduce the output a bit more. So there's only so long you can physically go rowing. And we found 2 hours gave enough time for us to eat a bit of food, wash down with a wet wipe, get into your pajamas, sleep for an hour to an hour and a half, get up, put your clothes on, get back out and row again. Maybe have a snack, maybe put some sun cream on if you needed to. We sometimes, if we felt that we had a resting session where we had enough sleep and we're okay and we think we can row, we donate another 2 hours or an hour sometimes. So we would donate a bit of extra time on the oars. So there'll be 2 rowing, and then if you want to donate, we put a 3rd person on the oars, so that you've got 3 people rowing.
When you think about rowing, you think about the Olympic boats. We're not talking about Olympic boats, so we're talking about quite a big boat where you can have food, you can change and stuff.
For, a bigger expedition, the sort of racing rowing boats are very thin and tiny, very lightweight, and it's just a boat and some oars and some humans on it. We obviously have to take all our food with us for however long we think it could maximum take. So we didn't pack for 39 days, we packed for 55 days. We had to have all our safety equipment, a life raft, life jackets. We needed communication equipment. So we had satellite phones, radios. We had something called a BGAN, which is like it connects to a satellite and then transmits Wi-Fi so that we could connect. We usually did that for about half an hour a day just to send out a message or something. We needed to make our own water. So in order to do that, we needed power. If we were to take all of our own water, it would be a very heavy boat. So we have a desalination machine, which is attached to the solar panel and battery. So and the solar panel then ran everything. We had 2 solar panels, 2 batteries. So you had a backup of everything. So that meant that could feed your communication equipment, your chart plotter. We had other pieces of equipment like an AIS, which tells you if you're on the same path as another boat to give you a signal if you are. So that effectively would charge everything. But the 2 biggest sort of energy consumers on the boat were the water making machine, and we also had what's called an auto tiller, which steers the boat, so we can set it, on a heading. And we don't have to keep steering it, so that it would just, if the boat turns, it will turn the boat back on direction. But that was something that we had to manage and look after because those break very easily. So it was a self-sustaining boat. It's 7.5 meters long, a cabin at each end, which maybe would be better to call it a coffin because it's not big. You fit in there and there's not a lot of space, but that's where you sleep, and that's your only shelter really is in there. So that was sort of the setup of the boat.
Explain to people what possessed you really to wanting to do this expedition and row across the Pacific Ocean. What was your main goal and motivation behind it all?
As you know, I've always had a sense of adventure, and the thought to do much bigger expeditions was definitely looming. About 6 months before, I'd spoken with my old school friend Ollie Amos, who came up with the idea. And he told me that him and his brother want to do this, and then I said, I want to do it with you. Before that point, I had written down 5 on a piece of paper. 5 big challenges next 5 years. I want some mountain climbs, some serious mountain climbs. I want to do something big. I had always had these sort of dreams or fantasies about being washed up and like a kind of castaway scenario where you have to survive. I've always just loved the idea of being in basic elements and and trying to survive. That for me was how, when I was younger, I used to love testing myself because I lived in a forest and I wanted to see how long can I go out there and survive. And, I want to learn about what I can eat and how I can purify water and what's the best way to make a base. And so I did have these sort of ideas of, how it would be if you were washed out at sea. What would you make a raft out of? What would you, how would you collect coconuts to eat? And, like these sorts of things. And so when Ollie said we want to do an ocean, and they were initially looking at the Atlantic Ocean, when they said the Pacific Ocean, I was like, yes, this sounds cool, because the Pacific is an interesting Polynesian sort of linkage of islands among this vast space, bigger than all of the landmass on the planet. It takes up half the side of the globe. There was also a part of me that wanted to appreciate what the early Polynesians would have had to have gone through, because these days it seems like such a grand mission to do this, but we have compasses and water making machines and solar panels and boats designed for this. In those days they didn't have anything quite like that. and they had to navigate from the stars, and they had to fish, and they had to somehow collect water, and they took animals with them that they would actually farm on the boats because they did these long treks. And when they found places, they somehow managed to work out where they were so that they could get back and move between the islands, which is amazing. Because, having been out in the ocean, I realized how easy it is to miss these islands because you don't see them until they're right in front of you. So you miss it by, 30 miles this way, you don't see it. So there was definitely this sort of hunger for a big adventure. It was with 3 other mates, one who I used to go to school with, the other who is his brother, who's also a close friend of mine and lives in Dubai. So we trained together a lot. And the other was his friend from school who I, learned to paramotor with, so I knew him. And I just thought this was going to be fun. These are fun guys. This is going to be fun to learn how to do this, and the actual challenge of the whole thing will be good. And I couldn't think of a bigger challenge, to be honest.
Did you document any of this? Were you filming, or was it just for pleasure?
I don't get out of bed without filming it. So everything was filmed. It was we had a camera crew, part of my team, because I have a production company that filmed the run up to all of this. So way before, like a year before starting the training, getting the sponsorship on, we did this big gala dinner where we raised money for charity, and James Blunt came and he ran down the tables when he was a bit drunk, and it was kind of funny. And then on the boat, we filmed. I had GoPros set up everywhere. We did diaries and all this stuff, and we got some incredible footage. I knew something amazing was going to happen. I didn't know what it was going to be. We didn't have to create the drama. The drama was going to come.
Imagine if you're on a boat for 39 days, there's going to be some amazing stuff that's going to be happening, and ups and downs, and your thought process is going through different things. And can you do this? Can you not do this? Is it going to be, are we going to finish this off, or how long is this going to take? I'm sure all those things come through all your minds.
I mean, look, just to give you a little bit of a sneak peek of what might be coming in the documentary.
The ocean is a beast that is untamable. So I am looking forward to the excitement, the fear. This test is like no other.
To the island of Kauai.
A long way. This place is an amazing finish, but it's a journey that I will cherish forever and ever. Experience of a lifetime.
When we set off from Monterey Bay in California, we had been there for 2 weeks, and the biggest shock to us while we were there was it's really cold, and we didn't have in mind how cold this was going to be. The safety officer said 2 things that I'll always remember. He said, prepare for the hardest 24 hours of your life, because that's what's going to happen. It ended up being the hardest 10 days of our lives. The other thing that he said to us was, so far, nobody's died on his watch rowing an ocean, but someone's going to die. So it's up to us to make sure that's not us, because it's inevitable that's going to happen. This is a dangerous thing to do. And we had to think, really, I don't want that to be us. So we took off, and it was kind of funny because within the first half an hour, we were having an argument over which way is north, which is a pretty basic thing to figure out. But it turned out that we hadn't really used or tested our instruments, which were all facing the other direction. So we were getting readings of the wrong way. And so one of our guys is believing the instruments, and I was in particular was like, no, guys, we still got visual references of the land, that we know that way is east, so that way is west. And we're having this argument over basic things, which was almost just goes to show how unprepared and stupid we were.
As you're an inexperienced person doing this, I'm sure you learn along the way, and it's a process of learning.
Yes, I suppose, yes. Well, we knew that we were going to go out there and learn things. I just guessed that, like, such basic things should have been worked out already. There weren't that many basic things, but there were a few basic things that we should have really had worked out. When we took off, it was interesting because I think maybe 3 days before we took off, we had this kind of discussion over breakfast, because there was a lot of bravado, even a little bit of ego among us, because, you know, we've known each other since boarding school. We've got that boarding school kind of rough and tumble, tease each other, you know, like, and we said, you know, who's going to get seasick first? Like, you're going to get seasick first. I was like, no, you're, you know, so we had that. So after 24 hours, I was the one who got seasick, right? And I felt just awful. I mean, it wasn't just being sick, which is not a nice thing. You know, that doesn't make you feel good, but it was the nausea, the dizziness, and the feeling that I can't get out of this situation. I'm here, and I'm here for a long time. By that time, we had realized the seriousness of the situation. We realized how much we depend on each other, and that we only have each other in order to get through this, and that supporting every man was absolutely critical. So I got a pat on the back. You're all right, mate. Have it out. Go and have a rest in the cabin. You're going to be okay. And I suddenly felt very supported by my guys. It was, you know, I needed it, honestly. I was down. And I think this determined the ethos for the rest of the journey. I'm glad it happened to me as well, because maybe I needed to learn it first. A team is only as strong as its weakest player. So it's about getting your weakest guy through it. It doesn't matter if the strongest guy can power away, because if he's powering away on his own, he's not that strong. You got to get everyone up and feeling good. So those guys helped me get back on my feet. And at other times, it was other people who needed the support, whether it was emotionally because they missed their children and wife, whether it was just the feeling of being isolated, whether it was physical problems, tiredness, whatever it was, we had to get each other through it. I had a rowing partner, Barney, mentally was rock solid all the way through. He didn't seem to falter, but he would get tired at nighttime. And so I could always see at the 4 a.m. to 6 a.m. shift, he'd start falling asleep at the oars. So it was important. I had to try and make sure that he ate in the night, because if you don't eat, regularly, because a lot of the time you just eat in the daytime, and that's a mistake. You have to eat all the way through. Try and make sure he's getting sleep in the session before the night falls as well. And when I started seeing him do that, I turned off the music or the podcast, because we listened to a lot of podcasts, and I'd say, right, let's debate, and we'd have a debate with each other, and we'd set each other a topic, and we'd assign the person to argue the other side. So we'd pick an obvious thing to debate, and we give them the hard angle to debate it, and that kept us mentally engaged in the middle of the night, and time just ran really quickly.
The documentary that you've made, have you got a network to showcase this? What's the plan going forward? And also, just before you answer that question, whilst you were on that, and you obviously setting yourself tasks, listen to podcasts, which is fantastic, by the way, keeping the mind engaged, was there at any point where you felt as though there was a fear of failure?
Fear of failure? Well, there was a fear of death a couple of times. And you can't succeed if you're not alive anymore. Other than those really scary moments, and there was maybe 3 that I can really pull out, where maybe they weren't, necessarily so close to death, but if we hadn't have acted very decisively within about a minute, it could have been bad. One of those was a near collision with a cargo ship, which is something you never think would happen in the big wide Pacific. We hadn't seen a cargo ship for 3 weeks at one point, not a single ship, a boat, for 3 weeks. So that gives you an idea of how unlikely it is to see one. We saw about 7, I think, throughout the whole trip. Now, I think I took it a little bit more. I was a bit more scared about that than the other guys, and I realized why when we spoke longer, because I think I was more aware of the risks of the cold water. Because if that boat hit us, it smashed our boat. Our life raft could have been over there. Our life jackets could have been over there. The problem is, in that kind of water, it was about 8 to 10 degrees Celsius. We would have got hypothermia in 30 minutes. We would have died in 5 hours, depending. My worry was, what happens if we're separated from the boat, because we would have had to have jumped off the boat, and we're in that kind of condition. So that happened, and that was all filmed. We had times where we had 40-foot waves. We were in a storm within the first 10 days. The waves were coming at us from the side. Just to answer your other part of the question about the production, we raised about an amount of money through sponsorship, which we were putting towards production. We didn't raise as much as we thought we would. So what we decided was put everything into filming, so that we've got the footage that we can play with, and then figure out how to get some extra funding for editing later. As I have TV shows already on Amazon Prime, Dubai TV, and all the airlines like Emirates Airlines and things like this, I have those at my fingertips to submit to. But what we want to do is, because this is quite an interesting story, and it's a good documentary, or it will be once it's edited, is to see if we can work out a good deal with a more relevant channel, maybe Discovery, maybe Nat Geo. Let's see, maybe this could be something that Netflix would be interested in. Who knows?
To have all this at your disposal now, how does it make you feel? Do you want to go out again, or do you feel as though you want to do another expedition, but something different to this?
Having the freedom to be able to actually spend time here in Hawaii and reflect on things. Some of my teammates went back to work after only sort of 4 days rest, and I decided to stay here in Hawaii, which is an amazing place to have adventures. I've been training a girls team that plan to row the Pacific, who are based in Hawaii, to row to Hawaii from mainland America next year. And I'm the only person on the island who knows how to do that. So I'm actually going out with them on Saturday. I've already done a bit of work with them. So that's been nice, because it's kept me involved. It's also allowed me to take everything that I've learned and actually sort of teach it. And when you teach it, you learn it even deeper. So that's been great. So I've enjoyed doing that. Definitely, I have a thirst for another big adventure. That goes without saying. But what I think I have realized by doing this, and funnily enough, the realization came from I mentioned James Blunt was at the gala dinner. I was talking with him, so he was actually the first cousin of my 2 rowing friends who rowed in my team. That's why he supported us, and I learned from him about how he spends 1 year producing and creating an album in the studio, and then the next year out there promoting it and doing gigs and touring. So you've got to create, and then you've got to go and sell. So now we've filmed this documentary, we've done the adventure. Now I've got to make sure that I get that out there, get it finished, I'm also, getting requests to do a lot of speaking talks about the rowing and some of the lessons we learned about teamwork and leadership and mental fortitude and things like this. So there's an opportunity there to commercialize what we've done, this story. So I feel that has to be fully optimized and maximized before doing the next adventure, because then going into the next adventure, you have more support. You've done a good documentary that's got out there and been promoted. You've gone and spoke with lots of people about your adventure. So you really kind of got the word out, and now can do the next one, and it becomes a lot easier to get sponsorship. It becomes a lot easier to get a production together. People can see what you've done. So I feel like there's a lot of work to do after this adventure before I can do the next one. And also, life is not a rush. I've started to realize that. I did, honestly, when I wrote down 5 adventures, it was 5 adventures in 5 years. But I'm not going to do it like that now. I'm going to take my time, and I can have smaller little adventures in between. And this one took 2 years of fundraising, training, logistics, all these things that have to be done. And I expect the next one will probably take a couple of years as well. So I'm okay to allow a bit of time in between.
Very interesting point that you make, because you're absolutely right. Once you've done an expedition and your goal is to obviously get it out there for people to see and see what you've done, you're making sure that you have covered every area and making sure that people have heard about it. The promotional work of it is actually as sometimes as hard as the actual expedition, because you've done the hard work, but the hard work actually doesn't finish until you get it out there. And you've mentioned obviously you want to get it across to the likes of Discovery Channel and that geo thing that you've done. I can't wait to see it, and I congratulate you and your team for completing it. And hopefully when it comes out, it's going to be a massive hit. I spoke to you a couple of years ago to where you are now. How proud are you that you're in this position and you're doing documentaries, you're doing travel shows? Did you ever think when you moved to Dubai 14 years ago to become an entrepreneur that you'd be sitting here as a television travel show adventurer?
No, I don't think I would have thought that. I probably thought I'd be something else. I think if someone was to say, by the way, this is what you're going to do in 10, 15 years time, I don't think I would have ever thought it was possible. I'm definitely very proud of where I've got to, because it really has been difficult. And, a lot of a hardship has happened. It wasn't always, making money, and that was difficult, but I stuck with it. And that's the thing I think I'm most proud of, is I'm still doing it. I found where my passion is, and I'm still doing it every year a little bit more. Is it as good or as big as I hoped it would be? I thought things would be bigger quicker, to be quite honest. I thought I'd be where I am now after like 1 or 2 years, and it's taken me 6.
Evolving takes a lot of time. It's not, you felt as though it could have been within a year or two, but when it comes to evolving, it can take 6 years, and you've got to enjoy the journey along with it as well. As long as you're enjoying it, then it all pays off, and it's all worth it at the end of the day.
100%. The whole reason I chose to do what I do is I came to the conceptual realization that whatever journey I'm going on, it can't be only the destination that's worth it. It has to be the journey, the everyday that I like to do. Because if it is the destination only, you might find that you never get to that destination, or you might find that when you get there, it's not what you thought it would be, which is just a very unsatisfactory way to be. And quite often that destination is some kind of financial destination, which it was for me when I was a entrepreneur trying to set up a business, and I wanted to sell that one day and have some financial freedom. Then I realized that I've got to find a business that gives me the life I want to live, and I think we spoke a lot about this in the previous podcast that we did. So it has been it's been enjoyable, because when things haven't been good, you know, I got things off the ground, and then in COVID it kind of went back down again, and I was back down to square one. But you know, I think if I wasn't doing something where I was truly passionate, I would have said, this business doesn't work. I need to find something else to do. But I didn't. I was like, well, I'm going to carry on doing this, and I'm going to find a way to make at least enough money to live on. But you know, I've got to see it through, and it's, you know, it's that passion that sees you through the hard times. And so, yeah, I am proud. I'm proud because I've stuck with it, and I'm still doing it. It's a nice sort of reminder and realization.
To see what you've done and the achievement that you've gone through, it's unbelievable. So congratulations on all of that. And I can't wait to see the documentary, can't wait to see the travel show. So I know you said that you're still raising some funding. So important messages on where people can find you and how people can get in touch with you as well if they wanted to get involved.
The easiest way to keep in touch with anything that's going on is always on social media these days. So, you know, catch me on Instagram or any other platform. Paris Norriss. You can check out Guy in Dubai on Amazon Prime, depending on which country you're in. But if you can't get hold of it in the country you're in, let me know, and I'll send you another platform that will have it in your country. And as the new shows come out, the travel show is already on airlines, so you might catch it on in-flight entertainment when you fly. But when everything is released for that, and the rowing expedition, I will make an announcement on social media.
Paris, it's been amazing talking to you. Thank you so much for coming on again. Enjoy the rest of your time in Hawaii, and I'll speak to you very soon.
Pleasure. Thanks very much.
That's it for my 100th episode of the podcast of Take a Wander with Shebs. I hope you enjoyed the show. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and hit the bell button to never miss an episode, and follow me on all my social media platforms. I thank everyone again for tuning in over the last 4 years, and I hope to see you all very soon. Bye for now.